Aliens thought they were invisible, until the human whispered in their ear the station hung in the darkness of space, small lights flickering along its corridors. Trade stations were never quiet, but this one had a silence that felt heavy. Luke Harris walked down the hall, his boots echoing on the metal floor. The sound seemed to vanish quickly, swallowed by emptiness. The cameras in the control room showed nothing unusual, but the bodies told another story. Crates of supplies lay scattered, chairs knocked over, and several station workers were gone. The few that remained stared at the walls, trembling and whispering to themselves. Luke had seen many dangers in his life, but the veiled ones were different. They were not seen in the usual way. They could bend light around themselves, and their sound signatures disappeared. No one could detect them unless they made a mistake, and even then it was often too late. Entire colonies had vanished. Rumors of humans being helpless against them circulated across the galaxy, and many species avoided the system entirely. Yet Luke still patrolled the station, hoping to find some clue that could give humans a chance to survive. He paused in front of a small door, the label worn and almost unreadable. Inside, medical supplies were neatly stacked. The quiet hum of the station's life support was the only sound. Luke's hand went to his communicator. "Security check," he said quietly. "All zones. We are still missing one tech crew and 2 traders." A soft voice answered, breaking the tension. "I'll check the lab sector," said Claire Benson, a human medic with calm eyes and steady hands. Claire had been on the station only a week, but her presence had already calmed many of the workers who remained. Luke appreciated that calm. "If anything moves," she continued, "I'll feel it. I have a way of noticing things even when sensors fail." Luke frowned. "What do you mean, notice things? The veiled ones are invisible, Claire. We can't see them. Our scanners are useless." Claire did not answer at first. She simply moved down the corridor, her steps light but certain. Luke watched her go, a strange feeling settling in his chest. He had been in the military long enough to know that confidence did not always mean safety. But there was something about her. She did not fear the darkness. She moved as if she could already sense danger before it appeared. The main docking bay was empty. The shuttle doors opened slowly, and Luke could see the small human scout ship resting in the bay. Ethan Cole, the pilot and scout, was already there. He was a quiet man, not very tall, but with sharp eyes that moved constantly. He was cleaning a small instrument, a routine task that seemed too calm for someone who should have been worried. Luke walked over, keeping his voice low. "We just lost another trader," he said. "You're lucky you arrived when you did." Ethan looked up, his eyes scanning the area as if reading it layer by layer. "I didn't arrive," he said softly. "I chose to come." Luke frowned. "That doesn't make sense. Nobody knows what's happening here. The veiled ones could be anywhere." Ethan's gaze did not leave the docking bay. He leaned slightly as if listening to something invisible. "I can feel them," he said simply. "They are watching, always watching." Luke shook his head, unsure if he was hearing a strange joke or madness. "Feel them? We can't see them. Even scanners don't work. How could you feel them?" Ethan stood and stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Humans evolved to sense predators that hide. It is an instinct. You may have lost the skill in daily life, but it is still there. Some of us can feel pressure shifts, hear the wrong echoes, notice things that are too quiet or too still. The veiled ones make mistakes. They always make mistakes." Luke did not know whether to be impressed or afraid. The stories about the veiled ones were terrifying. Invisible hunters that could strike anywhere at any time and disappear without a trace. Yet here was a human telling him they could sense them. Claire returned from the lab sector and joined them. "He is right," she said, her voice calm. "I felt the same in the corridors. They are near. We cannot see them, but they are close enough to disturb the air, the shadows, even the temperature slightly. It is enough if you pay attention." The 3 humans moved together, Luke in the middle, Ethan on the left, Claire on the right. The corridors were narrow and long, with service pipes running along the ceiling. The faint hum of machinery filled the background, a small comfort against the feeling of being watched. Suddenly, Luke froze. He thought he saw a shadow move in the corner of his vision, but when he turned, there was nothing. He clenched his fists, feeling the adrenaline spike. "Did you see that?" he whispered. Ethan shook his head. "No, I felt it," Luke blinked. "Felt it how?" "Pressure shift," Ethan said, pointing at the floor. "Step sound wrong, heat pattern off. Someone is moving close, not by technology, by instinct." Claire nodded. "That is how we will survive here. Pay attention to what you feel, not what you see." Humans have survived countless predators by listening, feeling, and watching with senses other than eyes. They continued down the corridor, moving toward the main control room. Luke noticed that the walls seemed thicker here, and the corridors were quieter. Yet even in this quiet, there was a sense of eyes following them, of the veiled ones waiting for the perfect moment. When they reached the control room, Luke keyed the console. The screens showed normal readings, but he knew better. The scanners might be empty, but the emptiness was wrong. Something was there. Ethan crouched slightly, listening. Claire moved her hand slowly across the surface of the console, almost as if she could feel the station's heartbeat. "They are in the walls," she said quietly. "And above us, maybe more than one." Luke's stomach tightened. "How can you know that?" "Humans notice patterns," Ethan explained. "Things that don't belong, sounds that shouldn't be there. We feel the unseen. Predators cannot hide from that, not forever." The lights flickered suddenly and the station shuddered. Luke grabbed the console for support. The sound of something moving echoed faintly through the metal hallways, a whisper that was too soft to catch. Ethan did not flinch. Claire did not flinch. Only Luke's heart raced. "Stay calm," Ethan said. "They will test us. The veiled ones always test before they attack. We wait, we listen, we act when the mistake appears." Luke swallowed hard. The thought that he had to rely on instinct rather than technology was frightening. All his life, he had trusted scanners, weapons, and security systems. Now he had to trust feelings, shifts in air, faint sounds, tiny changes in temperature. It was a new kind of fear. Hours passed and the station remained tense. The workers who survived huddled in small rooms, whispering prayers or trying to sleep. Luke, Ethan, and Claire moved carefully, checking each corridor and sector. Every step brought the possibility of encountering the veiled ones, yet none appeared. Ethan walked like a predator himself, scanning everything, listening to everything. Finally, they reached the observation deck. The view of the stars stretched endlessly, calm and beautiful. Luke let out a breath. "I don't know how you do it," he said to Ethan. "I feel like I am losing my mind." Ethan looked out at the stars. "The universe is full of things that cannot be seen," he said simply. "Humans survive because we listen, we wait, and we act. Tonight is only the first step." Claire placed a hand on Luke's shoulder. "Trust us," she said softly. "We will find a way. The veiled ones think they are invisible, but they are not invisible to those who know how to watch without eyes." Luke looked at them, understanding for the first time that survival here would not rely on technology, weapons, or scanners. It would rely on instincts, listening, and subtle observation. In a galaxy full of unseen hunters, the humans might be the most dangerous prey yet. As the station lights dimmed and the corridors returned to quiet, Luke realized something else. He realized that the veiled ones had never met a human like Ethan or Claire. And tonight, they would learn that being invisible was not the same as being safe. The first night passed, tense but quiet. Every shadow, every echo, every tiny shift in the air was felt, observed, and catalogued. The veiled ones watched from the corners, curious and cautious. The humans moved through the station like ghosts themselves, sensing danger without seeing it. And in the darkness, a whisper carried through the metal halls, a soft, almost inaudible sound, the kind only a human could detect. The hunt was beginning, but this time it was different. The humans were ready. The station had grown quieter since the humans arrived. The remaining workers moved in small groups, whispering, avoiding the empty corridors. Luke, Ethan, and Claire stayed together, moving cautiously. Every sound, every shadow felt suspicious. The Veiled Ones had not attacked directly since the first night, but their presence was everywhere. Luke had begun to understand Ethan's words. The aliens made mistakes, and those mistakes could be found if one paid attention. Ethan walked slowly through the main corridor, his eyes scanning for changes in the air, subtle shifts in pressure and faint echoes. He paused near a corner where the walls were slightly warmer. He touched the metal lightly. "Something moved here," he said softly. "They tested me. See how the air is different, how the heat changes slightly. It is small, but enough to know someone passed." Claire nodded. "I felt that too. It is like walking through water that isn't there, a disturbance you notice only if you are paying attention." Luke frowned. "So you're telling me that we have been moving through the station with invisible predators watching, and all we need is to feel the air and heat?" "More than that," Ethan said. "You need to understand them. Every predator leaves a signature, even if you cannot see it. They make choices, they hesitate, they listen. That hesitation is our chance." They moved down the corridor, careful and deliberate. Luke checked his communicator. "We need to find the missing workers. Maybe they are still alive. Or maybe they are bait," Ethan said. "The Veiled Ones are smart. They test fear, not just strength. If we panic, they win. If we wait and watch, we can turn their own instincts against them." As they walked, Ethan stopped suddenly. Luke almost bumped into him. Ethan crouched, eyes focused on a section of floor. "There," he whispered. Luke squinted. "Where? I see nothing." "There is a pressure ripple," Ethan said. "They moved across the floor, not by touching it but by the displacement of air and sound. They think they are hidden, but they are not." Claire knelt next to him. "I can feel it too," she said. "Small and light, more than one, maybe three." Luke swallowed hard. The thought of multiple Veiled Ones moving near them unseen was terrifying. He had survived firefights before, but never like this. "So what do we do?" he asked. Ethan stood slowly, keeping his eyes on the corridor. "We follow them carefully, watch for mistakes. They are confident in invisibility, but confidence makes predators careless." They moved forward, each step deliberate. Luke noticed that Ethan did not walk like most humans. His steps were light but controlled, almost silent. He paused frequently, listening to changes in air and sound. Claire followed closely, her senses trained to detect the smallest deviations. Luke tried to imitate them, but he kept stumbling, hearing things that weren't there, missing things that were. After several minutes, Ethan crouched again, pointing to a section of wall. "Look," he said. "See the dust there, see how it is disturbed. They passed too close." They underestimate humans' observation. Luke knelt, examining the floor. He could see it now, faint scratches and dust marks. "You mean they are leaving traces?" "Always," Ethan said. "Even predators that hide cannot erase themselves completely. We only need patience to notice." They followed the traces cautiously, moving deeper into the station. Every turn, every doorway carried a risk. Ethan and Claire moved with confidence, but Luke felt a constant tension in his chest. The Veiled Ones were clever, and they were still watching. Suddenly, a soft sound echoed down the hall, like a whisper or a shift in the air. Luke froze. Ethan tilted his head, listening. "They are testing us," he said. "See how they push fear without appearing. This is the first sign of hesitation. They are unsure." Claire's hand went to Luke's shoulder. "Breathe," she said. "They feed on fear. Do not give them that." Luke nodded, trying to calm himself. Ethan moved ahead slowly, signaling for silence. They reached a junction where several corridors met. Ethan crouched, listening. "They went this way," he whispered, pointing to a side corridor. "But they are watching. They will not move fast. They are confident in invisibility, but confident predators hesitate when they are challenged." They followed the corridor, careful to avoid loud noises. Suddenly, a crate shifted slightly. Luke jumped back. Ethan smiled faintly. "They made a mistake," he said. "The crate moved too fast. They brushed it. That is our chance." They advanced slowly. Ethan led, Claire beside him, Luke trailing. The corridor ended in a storage room. Dust and supplies were scattered. Ethan crouched near the door, listening. "They are here," he whispered. Luke's heart pounded. He could hear nothing. He could see nothing. Yet he felt a pressure, a slight vibration in the air. It was almost like being touched without contact. Ethan moved closer. "Watch and wait," he said. Suddenly, a shadow flickered near the ceiling, almost too quick to notice. Ethan caught it immediately. "There," he whispered. Luke squinted. "Nothing." Claire nodded. "I see it too," she said. "The heat shift, the air movement." Ethan crouched lower, moving silently. "They think we do not see them. They are arrogant. That arrogance will be their weakness." They waited, silent, tense. The veiled ones did not attack immediately. They moved around the room, testing, observing. Ethan and Claire followed their patterns, noting every small mistake. Luke tried to keep up, but he was slower, less sensitive to the subtle signs. After several minutes, Ethan whispered, "We can draw them out. We do not need to see them directly. We use their own habits against them." Luke looked at him. "How?" "Humans have patience," Ethan said. "We watch, we wait, and we provoke them into action. A predator cannot resist when it believes the prey is weak. We pretend to be weak. We wait for the mistake." They continued observing, noting each small movement. Dust shifted, shadows moved slightly, temperature changed in small patches. Ethan recorded the patterns in a small device, not to detect the aliens directly, but to map their behavior. Hours passed. The veiled ones grew bolder, moving closer to the humans, believing they were safe. Ethan crouched near a supply crate, waiting. Suddenly, one of the aliens moved too fast, brushing against a panel. A small spark flew. Ethan smiled faintly. "There," he whispered. "That is all we need," Claire nodded. "They cannot hide forever. Even invisible predators leave a trace." Luke finally understood. The humans had a weapon the veiled ones had not considered: patience, observation, and instinct. The aliens could vanish from sight, but they could not erase every small movement, every shift in air, every subtle sound. Ethan moved forward slowly, following the faint traces. The veiled ones hesitated. They had never faced humans who could sense them without seeing them. Every instinct they had relied on was failing. Claire moved beside Ethan, pointing to a section of floor where the dust was disturbed. "They are here," she whispered. "But they are afraid now. They know someone notices." Luke felt a surge of hope. He had been ready to give up, to believe that the veiled ones were unstoppable. But watching Ethan and Claire, he realized humans were not helpless. They had skills no alien could predict. They tracked the veiled ones through the station, moving from room to room, corridor to corridor. Each step revealed a new mistake, a new opportunity. Ethan recorded it all, mapping the invisible threat. The aliens became slower, more cautious, unsure of their advantage. By the end of the second day, the humans had identified patterns in the veiled one's movement. They had seen where the aliens preferred to hide, how they tested corridors, and how they reacted to the humans' presence. The invisible hunters were becoming predictable. Luke looked at Ethan and Claire. "You're saying we can fight them?" he asked. Ethan nodded. "Not just fight, we can make them retreat. Patience, observation, instinct, that is enough. They think invisibility makes them safe. It does not. Humans have survived predators that could not be seen for millennia. The veiled ones are no different." Claire smiled faintly. "We only need to be careful, patient, and aware. They are clever, but they are not perfect. We just need to wait for the mistakes." Luke felt a mix of fear and hope. For the first time, he believed survival was possible. The station was dangerous, and the veiled ones were still everywhere, but the humans had found a way to fight back. They had discovered a new weapon, one the aliens could not understand: instinct. As the station's lights dimmed and the corridors fell silent again, Ethan, Claire, and Luke prepared for the next phase. The veiled ones were still invisible, still dangerous, but now the humans could track them, predict them, and use their mistakes against them. The night stretched long and quiet, with the sense of being watched never leaving. Yet for the first time, the humans were not afraid. They had a plan, they had a method, and they had instincts sharper than any alien's invisibility. The hunt had begun, and the humans were ready to whisper back. The station felt alive in a strange way, though most of its workers had fled or hidden. Ethan, Claire, and Luke moved cautiously through the corridors, following the faint traces left by the veiled ones. Every shift in dust, every small change in temperature, every echo became a clue. Ethan had begun to map the aliens' patterns, and each observation made the invisible hunters slower, more careful, and most importantly, predictable. They reached a junction near the maintenance sector. Luke paused. "I feel something," he said, "like a presence in the walls." "It is almost like someone is breathing nearby." Ethan nodded. "Good, that is exactly what I want. They are too confident. They think invisibility makes them untouchable. Right now they are testing us, seeing if we panic." Claire crouched near a control panel, scanning for small disturbances. "They move silently but not perfectly. They think we do not notice, but we can feel them. If we wait, they will make mistakes." Luke felt his stomach tighten. He had seen predators before, but this was different. These were hunters that could disappear at will. The fear was constant, almost crushing. Yet he trusted Ethan and Claire because they moved calmly, relying on instincts he could barely understand. Ethan motioned for silence and pointed to a corner. The air seemed thicker there, warmer, with a faint vibration Luke could feel only faintly. Ethan whispered, "There is one, maybe two, they are close. Do not move too fast." Luke nodded, crouching. Claire adjusted her stance. They waited, time slowed. Each second stretched, heavy with tension. Then Ethan's eyes sharpened. He tilted his head and whispered, "They are testing. One is moving toward the ceiling, the other along the wall. Notice how they avoid the floor. They think we will look there first. Arrogance is their weakness." Luke tried to follow with his own senses, but he struggled. The subtle cues were difficult to read. Ethan smiled faintly. "Do not worry, you will learn. For now, watch and feel." They crept forward slowly. Ethan led, testing the path with small movements, observing reactions in the air. A faint rustle echoed along the pipes above. Ethan froze, eyes locked on a section of ceiling. Luke and Claire froze as well. "They are close," Ethan whispered. "Do not panic. Wait." Then a panel near the ceiling shifted slightly. Luke could see it move, just a tiny fraction, but it was enough. Ethan crouched lower, pointing. "There, a mistake. Now we act." Claire nodded and moved toward the panel with slow, deliberate steps. "Remember, we do not strike blindly. We force them to reveal themselves." Luke stayed back, heart pounding, watching as Ethan and Claire subtly manipulated the environment. A small container of tools was nudged along the floor, creating a sound. The veiled one above hesitated, adjusting its position. The mistake appeared. Ethan whispered, "Watch the air. Notice the heat shift." A faint shimmer appeared near the ceiling, almost invisible as the alien tried to adjust its cloak. Ethan pointed and Claire nodded. "Now," she said. They moved together, drawing the veiled ones into a narrow corridor. Every step was calculated. Dust swirled faintly, air shifted, and the invisible predators had no choice but to react. One veiled one rushed forward, brushing against a metal beam, and a faint sound echoed. Ethan caught it immediately. "There, we have it." Luke saw a blur above, faint but there. For the first time, he realized the aliens could be sensed without seeing them clearly. Ethan had taught him how to observe mistakes, and now the humans were turning the hunt into their own advantage. The veiled ones panicked, realizing they were no longer fully in control. They shifted, but every movement left a trace: heat, air, and dust. Ethan and Claire followed patiently, avoiding mistakes. Luke began to understand slowly how human instincts could rival alien technology. Ethan whispered, They think invisibility is protection. They do not understand patience, observation, or instinct. That is where humans are strongest. They reached a wider chamber. Crates and supplies created narrow paths, perfect for drawing the aliens into predictable routes. Ethan crouched behind a crate, signaling Luke and Claire. We need to make them reveal themselves fully. They will test one last time, patience. A faint sound came from above. Ethan tilted his head. They are preparing to strike. Now is the moment. Claire stepped forward, her movement slow and deliberate, nudging a small container that rolled and clattered. The sound echoed faintly, bouncing off the walls. One veiled one hesitated, moving too quickly in response. Dust shifted along the floor. Ethan caught the change in heat. They are exposed. Now we act. Luke watched as Ethan whispered a command. The alien above shimmered and recoiled, clearly startled by something it could not see. Ethan's voice was soft, almost gentle yet firm. We know where you are. The veiled one froze. It had never been addressed while invisible. It was a predator, confident in invisibility but suddenly aware that humans could sense it perfectly. The other veiled ones hesitated, sensing the shift. Claire stepped forward and whispered, "You are not safe. We can feel you. We know you." Luke felt a thrill of fear and excitement. The invisible hunters were learning that humans were not ordinary prey. They could not hide from instincts honed over millennia. Ethan moved closer to a faint shimmer near a wall. He whispered into the air, "We know you are here. Mistakes matter, arrogance will fail." Suddenly, the alien made a movement too fast. Dust flew, a shadow shimmered, and Ethan caught it immediately. He pointed, signaling Claire. They advanced slowly, carefully, keeping pressure on the veiled ones. The predators had no choice but to reveal more of themselves. One shimmered in full form for a brief moment, its shape pale and thin, almost ghost-like. Ethan whispered again, "We see you. We feel you. You cannot hide from humans who listen." Luke was amazed. The invisible aliens who had terrorized colonies across the galaxy were panicking. Their instinct was to hunt, but they were now being hunted in return. The humans were turning invisibility into a weakness. Claire adjusted her position, signaling Luke, "Keep close. Notice the smallest signs, temperature, air, sound. Follow them carefully." The veiled ones fled into smaller corridors, trying to regain confidence, but Ethan anticipated every route. The humans moved quietly, tracking each subtle trace. Luke began to understand the patterns, finally sensing the presence the way Ethan had. It was slow, but his fear began to transform into focus. Hours passed as they tracked the veiled ones through the station. Every room revealed small mistakes, tiny signs that made the invisible predators visible in a new way. Ethan whispered instructions constantly, teaching Luke how to observe, feel, and wait. Finally, they cornered one veiled one in a storage room. Ethan and Claire positioned themselves carefully. The alien shimmered faintly, clearly uncertain. Ethan stepped forward, crouched slightly, and whispered, "You cannot hide. We know you. We have patience, instinct, and observation. You are no longer safe." The veiled one recoiled, realizing its invisibility was useless against these humans. Ethan's words were not loud, but they carried authority. The alien froze, every instinct telling it to run, yet unable to act without revealing itself fully. Claire nodded at Ethan. "They are trapped by their own arrogance. We only need to wait." Luke watched, heart pounding. He had never seen humans confront a predator without weapons, relying only on patience, observation, and instinct. It was terrifying and beautiful. The veiled one shifted slightly, creating a faint shimmer, and Ethan and Claire adjusted immediately, following every subtle trace. Finally, the alien made a mistake too large. A panel shifted, dust fell, and Ethan moved quickly, catching the shimmer. Luke saw it clearly now. The alien was exposed, trembling, and helpless. Ethan whispered in its direction, "You cannot hide from humans who watch, feel, and wait. Your confidence fails." The veiled one froze completely. For the first time in its life, it realized that invisibility was not protection. Humans were not ordinary prey. They could sense, anticipate, and act without seeing. The predator was trapped by the very instincts it thought would fail. Luke felt a mixture of fear, awe, and exhilaration. He finally understood what Ethan and Claire had been teaching all along. Humans did not need to see the monster to know where it was. They could track it, sense it, and turn its own confidence against it. The first confrontation ended with the Veiled One retreating, wounded and frightened. Ethan, Claire, and Luke stood in the room, listening to the silence that followed. For the first time, the station felt like it could be defended. The invisible hunters were learning caution, and humans had discovered a way to make the unseen seen. As the lights of the station flickered faintly, Ethan whispered to Luke and Claire, "This is only the beginning. They will test us again, but now they know humans are not easy prey. Patience, instinct, and observation will always give us the advantage." Luke nodded. Fear was still there, but so was confidence. For the first time, he believed survival was possible. The Veiled Ones were clever, but humans were clever in ways the aliens could not imagine. The night stretched long and quiet, but a new understanding had taken hold. Invisibility was not invincibility. Humans had learned to whisper to the unseen, and the hunt had begun in earnest. The station had changed since the first confrontation. The invisible predators, the Veiled Ones, were no longer confident. They still lurked in the shadows, but each step carried caution, and each movement revealed traces. Ethan, Claire, and Luke moved carefully through the corridors, now confident that humans had an advantage the aliens did not understand. Ethan paused at the entrance of a large supply room. "This is perfect," he said quietly. "We can use the environment to our favor. They rely on invisibility, but obstacles and patterns make mistakes visible. We will draw them in." Claire nodded. "We need to set traps that do not rely on technology. Sensors are useless. We need to force them to reveal themselves with simple things: sound, movement, heat." Luke frowned. "Like what? Throw objects and hope they make a mistake." Ethan shook his head. "We create paths they will take, and we manipulate the environment so their mistakes are unavoidable. Humans survive predators by thinking, observing, and using instinct. It is time to fight on our terms." They began rearranging crates and containers in the supply room. Narrow paths were created, dead ends were built, and light dust was scattered along surfaces. Even the smallest shift in weight would reveal the Veiled Ones. Ethan and Claire worked quickly, explaining each step to Luke as they went. "Look here," Ethan said, pointing to a pile of crates. "The Veiled Ones move through corridors confidently. If we force them to take a narrow path, every movement creates a detectable change. Air pressure, heat, sound. That is all we need." Claire added, "They cannot hide from instinct. Humans know when something is wrong even if it cannot be seen. This is our weapon." Luke began to understand. Technology was unreliable here. Scanners, cameras, weapons, they all failed against the Veiled Ones. But human senses, instinct, and patience could reveal them completely. He began to pay attention to small changes in air, faint echoes, and subtle temperature shifts. Slowly, he started to feel what Ethan and Claire had been describing all along. As they worked, a faint shimmer appeared in the far corner of the room. Ethan noticed it immediately. "They are watching," he whispered. "One of them thinks it can find an opening. It will test us." Claire crouched, listening to the movement. "They are hesitant. They do not fully understand our observation. Their arrogance is slipping." Luke held his breath, feeling the presence in the room. He could sense the Veiled One's pause, the faint shift in air, and even the slight vibration of its movement. He pointed to a patch of dust that had shifted slightly. "There," he whispered. Ethan nodded. "Good. Now we wait. Patience will force mistakes." The Veiled One moved along the path they had prepared. Each step created tiny shifts in dust and air. Ethan signaled Claire. She adjusted a small crate so that the alien would nudge it. The sound was minimal but enough. The Veiled One hesitated, uncertain. Luke's heart pounded. He had never felt fear and anticipation like this before. The alien, invisible and deadly, was reacting exactly as Ethan predicted. Every instinct it relied on to hunt had been turned against it. Ethan whispered, "Watch the air. Every mistake counts. They cannot hide from what they cannot escape. We control the corridor, we control the hunt." Claire crouched near a crate, ready to respond to the smallest movement. "Remember," she said softly, "we do not strike blindly. We guide them into revealing themselves. Patience and instinct will do the work." They waited tense as the Veiled One moved along the path. Suddenly, a small panel shifted slightly, dust fell, and a faint shimmer appeared. Ethan pointed. "There, we see it. Keep observing." The alien froze, sensing that it had been noticed. It tried to move faster, but the narrow path and their traps limited its options. Ethan whispered again, "We know you. Every movement leaves a trace. Arrogance fails." Luke watched in awe as the invisible predator struggled to remain hidden. The humans had made it impossible. Every instinct the Veiled One had relied on was failing. Dust, air, temperature, and faint sounds, all were working against it. Claire smiled faintly. "They think invisibility is safety. It is not. Humans survive predators that cannot be seen by sensing the mistakes." Ethan moved closer, leading Luke and Claire as they advanced cautiously. "We push them into making bigger mistakes. Watch for hesitation, observe shifts, and respond slowly. They panic when their confidence is gone." The Veiled One hesitated at the end of the path. It shimmered faintly, almost completely revealing itself. Ethan whispered, "Now, stay calm, act with instinct." They advanced carefully, observing every motion. Luke began to notice patterns, small and precise. The Veiled Ones had no choice but to follow predictable routes. Every movement they made betrayed their presence. Hours passed as they guided the alien through the traps. Finally, it stumbled near a pile of crates, brushing against metal. Dust fell and a faint sound echoed. Ethan caught it immediately. "They are exposed. Now we act." Claire nodded. "Follow the traces, do not rush. We force them into the next mistake." Luke crouched, feeling every subtle change in the room. He could sense the alien's hesitation, the shift in air as it tried to escape detection. For the first time, he realized that instinct and observation were as powerful as any weapon. Ethan whispered, "They think they are hunting. Now they are the hunted. Patience and careful observation reveal everything. Humans are stronger than they know." They continued, cornering the Veiled One near a small chamber. The alien shimmered faintly, panicked, unsure of its next step. Ethan and Claire moved with precision, anticipating every possible escape route. Luke followed closely, sensing every shift. "They cannot escape," Ethan said softly. "Every step they take leaves a trace. Patience and instinct are stronger than invisibility." The Veiled One froze, realizing its advantage was gone. Ethan stepped forward slightly and whispered, "You are no longer unseen. We can feel you, hear you, and know your movements. Your confidence has failed." The alien recoiled, unsure of what to do. Claire adjusted a crate, forcing it to reveal itself slightly more. Dust fell, air shifted, and the shimmer became stronger. The Veiled One panicked. Luke watched, heart pounding. Invisibility was useless here. The human's patience, observation, and instinct were turning the tide. He had never imagined that simple senses could overpower such a deadly predator, yet here it was happening. Ethan whispered again, "They will flee if we continue with calm and observation. We do not need weapons. We only need to make them reveal themselves." The Veiled One finally made a desperate move, rushing toward a narrow corridor. Ethan signaled Claire. She adjusted the crates to guide it further, and Luke followed closely, sensing every faint trace. As the alien moved, it revealed more mistakes. Dust fell, air shifted, and small shimmers appeared. Ethan and Claire anticipated each, moving calmly and carefully. The Veiled One had no control. It was trapped by its own arrogance. Finally, it disappeared down a side corridor, wounded and cautious. Ethan, Claire, and Luke paused, breathing heavily. They had not destroyed the alien, but they had forced it to retreat. "This is only the first wave," Ethan said softly. "They will test us again. But now they know humans are not easy prey. Patience, instinct, and observation are our weapons. They do not understand this." Claire nodded. "We have the advantage. They will hesitate next time. We will force mistakes, and that is how we win." Luke finally allowed himself to feel hope. For the first time since arriving at the station, he believed humans could survive. The Veiled Ones were clever, invisible predators, but humans had something they could not understand: instincts, patience, and careful observation. The night stretched long and quiet, but a new understanding had taken hold. The humans had turned the station into a trap-filled labyrinth, using simple tricks that forced the invisible hunters to reveal themselves. Dust, air, sound, and heat became their tools. The Veiled Ones had underestimated humans, and now they were learning a lesson they would not forget. Ethan whispered to Luke and Claire, "Tonight, we taught them to fear humans. Tomorrow, we will show them that being invisible does not make them safe. The hunt has changed. The prey can see and the hunter is exposed." Luke nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. He had never been part of something like this. Invisible predators had always seemed unstoppable, yet the humans had found a way to control the battlefield without weapons, relying only on instinct and patience. The station was quiet again, but the tension remained. Every shadow, every air movement, every faint sound was a reminder that the Veiled Ones were still present, still dangerous. But now, they were cautious, hesitant, and vulnerable. Humans had learned to whisper to the unseen, and for the first time the invisible hunters feared being watched. The station was quiet, but the air was thick with tension. The Veiled Ones were still present, hiding in shadows, but they moved cautiously. Their confidence had been shaken, their invisibility no longer an advantage. Ethan, Claire, and Luke prepared for the final confrontation. Tonight, they would make the Veiled Ones understand that humans were not to be underestimated. Ethan checked the map of the station they had drawn over the past 2 days. Every corridor, every room, every small shift in dust or air had been noted. They had learned the aliens' movement patterns and weaknesses. Patience and observation had turned the invisible hunters into predictable prey. "They are careful now," Ethan said quietly. "But that is good. It means they are afraid. The first mistake will cost them everything." Claire adjusted the positions of crates, dust, and panels, creating narrow paths and forced turns. "We do not strike blindly," she said. "We guide them into revealing themselves. Instinct and observation will finish this." Luke followed, sensing every faint movement in the air. He was no longer afraid. Fear had been replaced by focus. He could feel the presence of the aliens, even when they were invisible. He understood what Ethan had been teaching. Humans did not need to see the predator to control it. Hours passed as they prepared the station. The corridors were now full of subtle traps, dust scattered along likely paths, crates arranged to limit movement, heat and air shifts forced by careful placement of panels and vents. The Veiled Ones had no choice but to move along predictable routes, revealing themselves with every step. Suddenly, a faint shimmer appeared near a corner. Ethan crouched, eyes locked on the subtle movement. "They are testing us," he whispered. "Do not move too fast. Wait for mistakes." The Veiled One moved, brushing lightly against a crate. Dust shifted, a faint echo sounded, and Ethan caught it immediately. "There, we see you," he whispered. Claire nodded. "They hesitate, they are afraid. Continue." Luke felt the alien's presence, the subtle air shift it created. He pointed to a faint vibration on the floor. "Here," he whispered. Ethan smiled. "Good, every movement is a trace. We do not need weapons. Instinct, patience, and observation are enough." They followed the Veiled One through the labyrinth of corridors, guiding it with subtle adjustments. Crates shifted slightly, dust fell, air moved. The alien panicked, revealing more of itself. "They cannot escape," Ethan whispered. "Every step leaves a trace." Patience and instinct are stronger than invisibility. The Veiled One tried to retreat through a narrow corridor, but Ethan and Claire anticipated every move. Luke followed closely, sensing each shift. The alien shimmered faintly, fully aware that it could not hide. Ethan whispered into the air, "You are no longer unseen. We feel you, hear you, and know your movements. Your arrogance has failed." The alien froze. It had never been confronted like this before. It was confident in invisibility, but humans had turned instinct, observation, and patience into a weapon. It could no longer rely on hiding. Claire adjusted a crate, forcing the Veiled One to reveal itself more. Dust fell, air shifted, and a faint shimmer became visible. The alien panicked, unsure of what to do. Luke stepped forward slightly, feeling the presence of the predator. He whispered, "We know where you are. You cannot hide. Your tricks fail." The Veiled One shimmered more, trembling, its movements hesitant. It had never faced prey that could anticipate, sense, and control its actions without seeing it. Humans were teaching the invisible hunters a lesson they would not forget. Ethan signaled Claire. She shifted crates again, guiding the alien into a narrow chamber. It had no choice. Every instinct it relied on was failing. Every movement revealed it further. "Watch the air, dust, and heat," Ethan whispered. "The moment they make a mistake, we control the hunt." The alien, desperate, tried to rush through the chamber. Dust fell, a faint sound echoed, and Ethan caught the shimmer immediately. "They are exposed. Now we finish this," Claire nodded, moving carefully. "Do not strike blindly. Guide them into the next mistake." Luke crouched, sensing the alien's hesitation. It shimmered fully, moving like a trapped predator. Every instinct it had failed. The humans had turned the invisible hunter into prey. Ethan whispered softly, "You cannot hide from humans who observe, feel, and wait. Invisibility is not protection." The Veiled One froze completely, realizing it had no advantage. It shimmered faintly, almost fully visible, and retreated toward a side corridor. Ethan and Claire followed, guiding it carefully, while Luke sensed every subtle movement. Hours passed as the final chase continued through the station. The Veiled One's confidence had been broken. Their mistakes became larger and easier to detect. Every shift in dust, air, or heat was noted and anticipated by the humans. Finally, the Veiled One reached the docking bay. It hovered near the walls, hesitant, unsure of its next step. Ethan stepped forward slightly and whispered, "You cannot escape. Humans watch, feel, and act. Your confidence has failed." The alien recoiled, shimmering fully, unable to hide. Claire adjusted a crate, blocking its retreat. Luke felt the air shift and whispered, "There, we control the space." The Veiled One panicked, realizing it could not escape. Every instinct it relied on to hunt had been used against it. Dust fell, heat shifted, and a faint echo sounded. Ethan stepped closer, whispering, "We know you. You are no longer safe." Finally, the Veiled One fled the station entirely, moving into the void of space. It had been forced to retreat, leaving behind fear and caution. Humans had turned the invisible hunters into vulnerable prey, using nothing but patience, observation, and instinct. Luke, Ethan, and Claire stood in the empty docking bay, breathing heavily. The tension had not left completely, but hope filled the space. They had survived, and more than that, they had proven that humans were not ordinary prey. Ethan looked at Luke and Claire. "They will not forget this," he said quietly. "Humans are dangerous, even when they are alone and unseen. Patience, observation, and instinct are enough to challenge the strongest predators." Claire nodded. "We do not need weapons to survive. We only need awareness, patience, and trust in our senses." The Veiled Ones learned that tonight. Luke finally allowed himself to relax slightly. Fear had been replaced by confidence. Humans had survived invisible hunters that had terrorized the galaxy. They had used simple tools, dust, crates, air shifts, and instinct to turn the tide. As the stars shone outside the station windows, Ethan whispered softly, "This is only the beginning. The galaxy will hear about humans who can sense the unseen, hunt predators without weapons, and survive where others cannot. We have shown that even invisibility is not enough against instinct and patience." Claire smiled faintly. "We will leave quietly. The station is safe for now. They will spread the word, and the rest of the galaxy will learn that humans are not to be underestimated." Luke nodded. "I understand now. Humans survive because we listen, observe, and act with patience. We do not need to see the monster to know where it is. Once we whisper to it, the hunt has already begun." The station settled into silence. The Veiled Ones had retreated, their arrogance broken. Humans had proven that instinct, observation, and patience could overcome even the most advanced predator. Ethan, Claire, and Luke prepared to leave the station, quietly boarding their small scout ship. The stars stretched endlessly outside, calm and beautiful, but the galaxy had changed. Stories would spread of humans who could sense invisible hunters and turn predators into prey. As the ship departed, Ethan whispered to Luke and Claire, "Remember this. Humans are never ordinary. Even when unseen, even when feared, our instincts and patience make us dangerous. The Veiled Ones will not forget, and neither will the galaxy." Claire looked out the window, smiling. "We did what others said was impossible. We survived, and we turned fear into power." Luke sat quietly, thinking of the lessons learned. Humans had survived invisible predators because they relied on what the Veiled Ones could not understand. Instincts honed over generations, patience in the face of terror, and careful observation. The galaxy had underestimated them for too long. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the Veiled Ones would remember the humans who whispered to the unseen, who tracked predators without seeing them, and who turned fear into control. The ship moved into the stars, leaving the station behind. Humanity had survived. And in the galaxy, a new reputation was being forged. Invisible predators feared humans because humans could listen, observe, and act when no one else could. The hunt had ended, but the lesson remained clear. Invisibility was never enough, and humans were never ordinary.